How do we make our graphs more accessible? Accessibility is woven into all of my Dataviz trainings, but I get this question a lot, which is a good thing. I'm so glad people care about accessibility. So I wanted to make a talk that was focused just on accessibility and quick wins, because there's a misconception that accessibility is going to take all day. That's false. There are absolutely some quick edits that we can make to get immediate impact. So what you're about to hear is a portion of a talk that I gave at Good Tech Fest back in spring 2021 about quick wins for accessibility in Dataviz. Enjoy. Let's go to number 8. We'll see how many of these we can knock out together. Reading level. How do you write about your graphs in a way that's easy to read, that's not written at too high of a reading level? You're not writing for PhD people in peer-reviewed journal articles all the time. You're writing for like busy people, right? The rest of us who are really busy. We've got tons of graphs coming into our inbox every single day. So here's what you're going to write down. This one's pretty obvious. We're going to lower the reading level. Lower it. We're going to test it. Then we're going to adjust it. I'm going to give you a list of how to lower the reading level, and you're going to lower the reading level. So let's get into some details of this one. All right, here is a real life graph from a public health agency that I work with a lot. And when I saw this title, I was like, what? What is this? I'm going to give you a second to read this and see if you can rewrite it at a lower reading level. It's okay if you have to read it 5 times in a row. I did too. Let me know in the chat, how would you lower the reading level of this graph title? Stage 3, AIDS, classifications and deaths of persons with diagnosed HIV infection ever classified as stage 3 AIDS among adults and adolescents, 1985 to 2014, US and 6 dependent area. Oh my goodness. Mark, I love your idea. HIV infections. Yeah, that's what it's about. It's about HIV infections. Alex says, make it shorter and then point to the details in the notes. Yeah, Tiffany says that's so many words. It is. I truly have to give my brain a pep talk and think like, have I had enough coffee? Am I stupid? Like, what's wrong with me that I can't understand this? Melissa says, put the key takeaway in the title. Yes, yes, yes. We're going to do that. Patricia has an idea. AIDS rates dash infections and deaths. Katie says a subtitle, perhaps. Yes, these are all correct answers. Okay. I read this in real life with this epidemiologist probably 5 times. And finally I said to her, I was like, wait, is this okay? I was like, what is classifications? I don't know if I know what that term means. And she was like, that's when you go to the doctor and you take a test and you find out that you have HIV or AIDS. And I was like, so you get diagnosed? Like you get an official like diagnosis. It's like put on your chart or whatever. She was like, yes, that's a classification. And I was like, okay, I know what deaths means. I get that. There are other words I didn't know what they meant. I was like, dependent area, what is, and she's, what is all this? And finally I was like, is it just about AIDS diagnoses and deaths? And she was like, bingo, that's about it. We fixed some other things in the graph too. I'll talk about those in a moment, but the title was just AIDS diagnoses and deaths. This was enough. We kept that full title that she had, because she wanted to make sure that even the technical people, like the fellow epidemiologists, knew what was going on. So we just bumped down her title, turned it into a subtitle like Katie recommended. So great job, Katie. 5 gold stars for that idea. Below this, some things that you might have noticed were, let me go back one. Do you see all the vertical text, like this one? Classifications and deaths, totally vertical. And then all the diagonal years, so teeny tiny, so diagonal. So that's what we tried to clean up in this one here. We just tried to keep everything horizontal, labeled a few key points that she told me were really, really important, and really, really simplified the title. We went on to add a takeaway message, like a few of you recommended. So 5 gold stars for all of you too, like Melissa, who says, put the key takeaway in the title. Absolutely. I asked her, like, what's the main gist here? What are you going to go say at your conference presentation that this was going to be used for? And she was like, well, I want to talk about, some baseline data that we had of where things started in the mid 80s. And then they went up. But what I really want to talk about throughout my presentation is that it's been decreasing since the 1990s. And I was like, well, great. That's the takeaway message that you're going to tell people to write down in their notebook during the conference presentation, decreasing since 1990s. So before and after, we've got not quite fewer words, but we've got a different placement of words. And we also have something called a text hierarchy. So what you want to grab people's attention, the title, the clear key takeaway message in the title, that's large, bold, and dark. And then everything else is a little bit smaller, less bold, like regular text, and a little bit lighter, like that dark gray subtitle, so that they read the title first. And then if they want, they can read the subtitle and get more info. I was wondering if it was just my brain, is it just me struggling with this? I don't know. So I went to an official readability website. This one's readable.io, which used to be free. Now it's free, kind of. I think now, what's the latest? They give you like 15 minutes of free use, and there's literally a timer on there. It's like, it's so stressful. So, and they make you put in your credit card information after that. So I don't know if I officially recommend the Readable website anymore, but there are many, many readability websites out there. Word has a built-in reading level checker. If you just Google like lower the reading level, measure the reading level of my report or of my graph, you're going to find a bunch of websites like this, and they score you. They tell you things like the Fleisch-Kincaid grade level, and they might tell you the Gunning Fog Index. These are all these different indices that, professional readability researchers and universities have created over the years. You can see that the before graph title was a 14.2, which in the US would mean you've graduated high school and gone to 2 years of college, kind of. Years of education and reading grade level, it's not an exact correlation, but it's a rough correlation. So you would have to, have some college education to understand the graph title as it is. Versus after, good old 6. 6 is a great spot to be at. Speaking of 6 being a great spot to be at, what do you think is the average reading level? I know for US adults, I know we've got some people from other countries here too, which might be higher than us. I don't know. What do you think in the US though? What's the average reading level? I know we'd all like to think, oh, I'm at a 20, I'm at a 10 million. No. Any guesses? Corey guesses 9th grade. Somia guesses 4. Daniel guessed 6. Yeah, 6 to 8. That's it. Middle school. A lot of people have gone to more education than that. Remember, it's not a 1-to-1. It's not like I finished 12th grade, therefore I read at a grade 12. It's not exactly that simple. You usually actually read a little bit below your formal education years. 6 to 8. Now, I know that a lot of us are not actually writing for the general public. If you write a grant report, you're writing to grant makers. They're not the general public. It's a different, different segment of the population. If you're writing for policymakers, that's not the general public. But a lot of, I don't know, you might be putting things out there for the general public, like anything on your website, anything at all that's uploaded to your website, you'd really want to be at a 6 to 8. And even though even though the average American reads at a 6 to 8, even if your audience reads above that, do they really want to? I mean, do I really want? I was reading a contract for a Dataviz training project yesterday, and I got to this like intellectual property paragraph, and it was so confusing. And I even wrote back to the client. I was like, this sounds contradictory. Is this accurate? Here's my understanding. And she was like, honestly, it's legalese to me too. And I was like, well, what are we signing? What are we signing if it's legalese to all of us? I don't want to read legalese all day. I know you don't either. So here's my recommendation for you. You think about what grade level your audience has, like how much education have they gone to, and then write 1 to 2 levels below that. So if you know this, I don't think this would ever happen in real life. Would you ever write for an all PhD audience? I guess if you're in grad, let's say you're doing your master's or PhD, like in the evenings after work, and you're writing for your committee, maybe you'd write at a doctoral degree level for that. No, I don't even know if you'd want to write that high for them. I would still recommend do like bachelor's level for them. Let's say you're writing for more of a bachelor's audience. It's probably going to be a lot of your coworkers, a lot of conference attendees might be in that range, maybe a board of directors at a nonprofit, grant writing audiences, funders, prospective funders. I would recommend writing at that middle school level, the 6 to 8, so that it doesn't feel like homework, so that our graphs don't feel like legalese where we have to read the titles 5 times to finally understand what they're talking about. Here's some more notes to write down. This is how you actually lower the reading level. These are the quickest wins. Active voice instead of passive voice. Shorter words, sentences, paragraphs. Shorter words can be tricky because you might have to actually go find some synonyms. That's number 3. Replace any jargon or research methods terms with synonyms. That's very hard to do. Like, how do you actually describe what a standard deviation is without using the term standard deviation? That's tricky. Or like, do you say mean and median, or do you just say average usually? That's tricky. That really involves a discussion, I'd say, with your teammates as to like, how do you accurately translate some of your terms? But let's look at the second one here. Shorter words. Okay, so you might have to find some synonyms. Shorter sentences. That's such an easy one. You draft your sentence. It might be really long. Mine often are. I have a lot of ideas I want to get down on the page. You go back, you edit your own work. And anytime you see a comma, you just replace it with a period. Bingo. Your really long sentence is now 2 or 3 shorter sentences. That's going to lower the reading level a couple notches. Paragraphs, shorter paragraphs. You draft your paragraph. It's going to be really long because you've got lots of info and lots of thoughts you want to get out there. And then you just reread it. You edit your own work. And somewhere in the middle of that paragraph, when you switch ideas to a little bit different concept, you just press the enter key and you break your 1 long paragraph into 2 shorter ones. And that is going to lower the reading level several notches. So sometimes you can keep the same content. You're just adjusting where the breaks are. Long sentences into short sentences, long paragraphs into short paragraphs. Let's practice. Okay. These are some real life sentences from a report that I worked on recently. And the report had already been drafted by one agency. And then it was my job to go in and finalize it, which I love doing because I don't have to start from scratch. I get to edit what's already been done. All right. So this before version, the draft version, said a survey instrument was designed by the such and such, we'll call it the ABC research organization. How would you lower the reading level? A survey instrument was designed by the ABC research organization. Active voice, shorter words, sentences, and paragraphs. Replace some jargon with synonyms. Those are going to be the quickest wins here. Megan says, make it active voice. Ding, ding, ding. Good job, Megan. Katie says, the ABC research organization designed a survey. What a quick win, right? We're just We're just flip-flopping the order of the words. Melissa says remove instrument. Yeah, why do we have the word instrument in there? The ABC Research Organization designed a survey. We can do this, right? All you have to do is unlearn everything you learned in college and grad school, which for me was a multi-year process, but hence the point of this conference session to speed up your transformation as well. All right, let's try another one. A total of 14 people participated in the survey. Change active voice to passive voice, shorter words, sentences, or paragraphs, replace jargon with synonyms. What are you going to do with this one? Julia says 14 people took the survey. Daniel says 14 survey participants. Katie says 14 people took the survey. Kimberly, same thing, 14 people took the survey. Yeah, that's it. I actually like the word took better than participated. So I think I'm going to write that down and update it myself. Participated. That is a long word, Anna Emery. Why am I doing that? Took. They took the survey. Perfectly acceptable. What about, have you learned that like rule? I say rule because writing changes all the time for different cultures and different contexts. Have you heard the rule, like if you start a sentence with numbers, you're supposed to spell it out? Like I didn't say 1, 4, I wrote out 14. We used to have that in a writing guide or a style guide at the organization I worked in, like numbers at the beginning of sentences have to be spelled out. So things like this would make me so nervous because I'd be like, what if it was 144 people? Do I have to write out 144 people? That gets so long. What do you do in this case? Are you going to write out 144 in letters? Depending on the context, let's say it's like a bullet point on a slide, you could certainly just say 144 people took the survey and leave the 144, which is Somia's vote. Yeah, depending on the context, I just leave the number in here. Or maybe just switch around the sentence structure a little bit, like we collected surveys from 144 people, tuck the number inside the sentence so that we don't have to write it out. We don't want to have so many millions of letters at the beginning of the sentence when we could simply have 144. Yeah, Martha says we collected 144 surveys. Great job, team. Here was another one. This sentence in the draft report said, undergraduate students comprise 65% of total responses. Comprise. What word is that? That's like a GRE word. What is that? Comprise? Sounds like a peer-reviewed journal article, which if you're writing a peer-reviewed journal article, great. The more jargon, the better. Seems to be how those are written. I don't understand that at all. That's how those are. But we're talking about all the other contexts. Undergraduate students comprise 65% of total responses. Somia says, and Kimberly and Kate, do you all have the same idea? 65% of responses were from undergraduates. Yep. You could even shorten that to 2 out of 3 or 2/3. We'll talk about numeracy level next, time permitting. So I tested this on readable.io, but you can use any tool. I'm not sponsored by Readable. I don't care which one you use, but I do care that you test your writing because you only have to do this once ever, literally once. You throw your draft paragraphs into one of these readability checkers. You're going to be horrified at all of your jargon and your long sentences and your passive voice, and it's going to underline all of the tricky words and sentences that you have. So this one before came out as a 12, which is actually not the end of the world. So I don't want to be too hard on this draft report. 9 to 12, that's not a bad place to be at. Somebody who maybe had a master's degree, law degree, like an MBA, if you're thinking of this is high school level, who can understand that? Probably people 2 levels above. So that's not the end of the world. But after we got it down to a 9 together, much, much better. All right. You can absolutely write about surveys, your focus groups, collecting census data, all your intake. You can absolutely write about all of your data and Dataviz topics with a 9th grade reading level. It will not sound dumbed down. It will not sound childish. We're just changing passive voice to active voice, shortening sentences, things like that. Pretty easy. Replacing jargon with everyday words, there are probably guides in your topic area. So I do a lot of public health projects with the CDC, with state public health agencies, with county and city public health agencies. And there is this guide. If you work in public health, maybe you do, maybe you don't. If you Google everyday words for public health communication, they've already put together this really detailed guide. And I love this one because it has the original sentences, kind of like what we just did, followed by the plain language sentences. So you can see exactly how to replace these jargony terms like abstinence. What does that mean? Plain language would mean not having sex. Like you basically take the jargon out and you put the actual definition of it in. What is access? You just remove the word access and you put able to get. So if anybody's here and if you know if your topic area has a guide like this, let us know in the chat because that'll all save us a lot of time.